Hi there, I'm Jennifer Grace. Welcome to Grit and Grace, my art channel. Today I'm going to be teaching you about thick paint petal paintings. This one specifically is a painting that I like to call a petal garden. So we're going to be starting off today with golden molding paste. You can see that's what's in the tub there. And we're also going to be using golden acrylic heavy body paint in titanium white. Golden paste has a bit of a gray tinge to it. It does not dry white as other pastes do. So if you are looking for a white paste, you need to make sure to put enough white paint in and mix it thoroughly. I tried to show you a good look there on the bottom of the palette knife so you could see exactly what it should be looking like. As you can see also, I am taking the paste and rolling it toward me with the palette knife. I then scrape off one or both sides of the knife, leaving a nice strong point on my petal. I've done a zoom in here, so hopefully you'll be able to see what it looks like laying the petals down. You want to use enough pressure to sort of squirt the paste out of both sides equally, and you're going to want to pull back on the palette knife at the same time. Pull back and remain in a downward position. Do not pull back and up the way you might with other petal styles. Again, here's a better look at me loading the palette knife and choosing where I'm placing the petal on the canvas. This painting was done completely intuitively. That means I didn't go into it having an exact idea of where I would be placing the petals. I wanted to go with the flow and see where the painting took me. This was a commission done for a very good friend of mine, and I wanted to make sure that the painting really felt like her. So I didn't want to plan it out too much in advance. I'm going to zoom in here to show you a better look at the petals going down. Also, they're going to be going down rapidly here. Once I switch to another palette knife, I will slow it down again for you. With the petals, I'm going one by one and deciding on each one which direction I would like it to face and how I would like the painting to flow. I also want to point out the importance of keeping your palette clean. You saw me wiping it clean there. Golden molding paste tends to dry a little bit faster than other pastes, so you want to make sure that you are keeping your palette clean, or it will start to dry and you will get hard little bits stuck in your paste. So we are now all done with the largest size petal, and I'm switching to a different palette knife. This is a diamond shaped palette knife by Liquitex, and again I'm just going intuitively and deciding where I feel the petals should be placed and in what direction I feel they should be placed. I want this to feel like either flowers or grasses or reeds blowing in the wind and having movement to them. So I'm not placing them all straight in an up and down direction. I'm placing some of them on an angle sideways. Again, you can see me loading the palette knife. I'm taking the palette knife, getting paste on it, scraping it toward me on the glass palette, and then I scrape off each side to get any excess paste off, and it brings it to a nice point. Now we're going to speed it up again and go into a hyperlapse so you can see what it looks like laying these petals down. Once we switch to a smaller knife, I will slow it down again so you can see how to load that palette knife. Now, part of this painting style is deciding which way to make the petals face. And when you're putting them on angles, you need them to all fit. If they don't fit nicely, you're going to have a hard time putting down the next row of petals. So here we are now with the smaller palette knife. This is also a Liquitex palette knife, also diamond shape in the smallest size that they have. It being so small does make it a little bit harder to load this palette knife, but you do load it just the same as all the other palette knives. You put it into the paste, scrape it toward you, and then scrape off both sides until you get a nice strong point. You can also use your fingers to scrape off any extra paste and make a nice strong point, but it is definitely a bit messier that way. Once you've got the hang of the smaller knife, it really isn't too difficult. And the good thing about these smaller petals is that it does fit in between these larger vines easier. Now you want to watch your fingers that you don't accidentally stick one of your knuckles into one of the petals. That is quite easy to do as well. Needless to say, it is quite a small, tight space you are working in. Another way to do this style of painting is to go from one side to the other. I prefer to work with one palette knife at a time, but you could be choosing to do it the other way, and that way you'd be less likely to stick your fingers into a wet petal. Here I am moving over now to make a new vine, and again, just watch the way the petals are facing, that you're able to get both the palette knife and your fingers in there okay, and that you're not going to hit one of the petals up against one of the larger petals. As I mentioned, it is the same technique for scooping up the paint with the palette knife. It is also the same technique when it comes to laying down the petal. Hopefully you were able to see that when it was in real time. You want to use firm but gentle pressure to press down on the paste while pulling backward. Now I decided to put 2 vines in here in this space, so this space is quite a bit tighter. Here's the last few petals you can see in real time. Just go nice and slow when you're putting it down. It will squirt out both sides equally and you pull the palette knife back towards you. Once I have each line finished, I like to take my finger over it and just make sure there aren't any bits at the end that are sticking out. In case I want to frame this later, I want to make sure that it's all within the frame of the canvas. Now I like to put a couple of loose petals that are, to me, blowing in the wind, floating in the wind, that have come off of these vines or flowers. Once it's all complete, you're just going to want to give it a few days to dry. It will start to form a skin on the outside, but that does not mean it is dry underneath, so do not push on the petals until you've waited at least a few days to ensure that it is dry all the way through. As you can tell from the side angle, the paste is quite thick and it does take a decent amount of time to dry. Now this is my favorite part, looking at the petals in the shadows. To me it almost looks like it's dancing. It gives life to that movement that we already created with the design. I love looking at the shadows and how it changes throughout the day as it's hung up on the wall. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and make sure you check out all of my other thick paint petal videos. As well as long form videos, I upload daily shorts.